All right, so if you're trying to wrap your head around what's going on in the Mauritian economy,
Yeah.
especially with all this talk about data discrepancies
Right.
under the previous government,
Mhm.
we're going to try to break it all down.
Okay.
We've got some data from previous years and then this new government report
Interesting stuff.
that's raising some eyebrows.
Yeah, what's fascinating is this new report paints a very different picture
Uh-huh.
of Mauritius's economic performance
Uh,
than what we were hearing before. It's
yeah.
like night and day.
So let's zero in on what we're seeing here.
Sure.
The new report puts the 2023 GDP growth rate at 5.6%,
Okay.
but previous data had it closer to 7%.
Mm.
Same story for 2024.
Yeah.
5.1% projected growth now
Right.
versus 6.5% before.
So a pretty sizable difference.
Pretty big gap.
Yeah. And the report suggests that this could be due to some inflated growth rates,
Okay.
especially in the construction sector under the last administration.
So it makes you wonder why a government would inflate these numbers.
Right.
What would be the point?
Well, one possibility is they were trying to hide some underlying economic weaknesses,
Right.
present a strong image even if things weren't so great underneath.
So if we dig a little deeper into that,
Yeah.
what are some of those weaknesses that might have been hidden?
Well, the new report points to a declining investment rate,
Okay.
particularly private investment, which is a little worrying.
Yeah, because a healthy economy usually means consistent investment.
Exactly.
But didn't the previous government highlight
Yeah, that did.
positive investment figures?
They did.
I remember hearing a lot about that.
But the thing is, a lot of that investment seems to have been concentrated in real estate,
Oh.
not in areas that drive more diverse economic growth, like
Right.
manufacturing or tech. It's like putting all your eggs in one basket.
So even if the numbers looked good at first glance,
Mm,
the money wasn't necessarily going where it could have the most impact.
right.
What about the Mauritian rupee?
Oh, yeah.
That's seen some fluctuation.
Absolutely. The rupee has depreciated significantly against the US dollar,
Right.
about 46% since late 2014.
Wow.
So, if you were thinking about investing in Mauritius
Right.
or even just planning a trip,
Yeah.
that would have a real impact on your finances.
That's a pretty steep drop.
It is.
And I'm guessing that kind of depreciation doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
No, it doesn't.
Suggests there might be other things going on.
Exactly. And this depreciation rate is much higher than historical averages,
Interesting.
which makes you think, is this just normal fluctuation?
Right.
Or is this a sign of deeper economic problems?
Like a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what else might be lurking beneath the surface.
Uh-huh.
And it's not just about the data discrepancies, is it?
No, it's not.
This new report also highlights some other challenges that Mauritius is facing.
That's right.
Yeah.
For instance, the report mentions the depletion of special funds, which are really important for financing development projects.
Yeah, those are key for infrastructure and social programs.
Yeah.
The things that keep a country running.
Exactly.
So depleting those could have a ripple effect across the economy.
For sure.
And then there's the issue of the CSG.
Yeah.
The Social Security Program
Right.
report basically says it's facing a growing financing gap,
Uh-huh.
meaning the money coming in isn't enough to cover what needs to go out.
Right. So if that's not addressed, it could have a big impact on social welfare programs in Mauritius.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Absolutely. And on top of that, the report flags the increasing public debt,
Okay.
a big chunk of which is from equity injections and spending related to various projects.
So it sounds like the economic situation in Mauritius is more complicated
Yeah,
than it might have seemed at first glance.
it is.
Data discrepancies aside, there's some real challenges that need to be addressed.
Absolutely. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion.
Yeah.
There's always something else underneath.
Now, before we get into potential solutions,
Sure.
let's take a look at what other countries have done in similar situations.
Yeah.
See if there are any lessons we can learn.
Right, because if other countries have faced these kinds of challenges with data and economic instability, their experiences could offer some valuable insights for Mauritius.
Absolutely.
So we've seen some potential data discrepancies and highlighted some key challenges Mauritius is facing.
Right.
The question now is, what can be done about it? What can the new government do to get things back on track?
Yeah, because just knowing about the problems isn't enough.
Right.
Got to figure out where to go from here.
Exactly.
So where do they even start?
I think a good place to begin is with transparency.
Okay.
We saw those concerns about the accuracy of the economic data under the previous administration.
Right.
So building trust is crucial.
It's like laying a new foundation. if the data isn't reliable.
Exactly.
It's hard to make good decisions about the future.
Right.
So how can they improve transparency? What concrete steps can they take?
One thing they could do is look at what other countries have done in similar situations. Remember we talked about Botswana?
Yeah.
They privatized their central statistics office to make it more independent.
Oh, so by separating it from government control,
Yeah.
that could reduce the potential for political influence on the data.
Exactly. Create a more neutral, trustworthy source of information.
Makes sense.
It might involve restructuring the existing Statistics Mauritius,
Yeah.
or even creating a whole new entity. It wouldn't be easy, but it could make a big difference.
Yeah, in terms of restoring credibility
Right.
and attracting investors.
Exactly. It sends a signal that the government is committed to honesty and accountability.
But transparency is just one piece of the puzzle.
It is.
What about those other economic challenges we talked about?
Right.
Where should the government focus its energy?
Well, declining investment, particularly in those productive sectors, is a big one.
Right. Remember all that investment going into real estate?
Exactly.
Not necessarily where it's needed most?
The new government needs to make Mauritius attractive to long-term investors.
Okay, so incentivize diversification.
Yeah.
Make it easier for businesses to invest in industries that'll create sustained growth.
Exactly.
So what kind of incentives are we talking about?
Things like tax breaks, streamlining regulations, maybe even creating special economic zones to attract specific industries. Make it appealing to invest in manufacturing, tech, renewable energy, things with growth potential.
Right. Areas where we can see long-term growth
Yeah,
and job creation.
exactly.
Okay, let's not forget about the elephant in the room.
Oh, what's that?
The rupee's depreciation.
Oh, right.
Can the government really do anything to stabilize the currency?
That's a tough one.
Seems like it.
There are global factors at play that are outside their control.
Right.
But there are some things they can do.
Like what?
For example, building up the country's foreign exchange reserves.
Okay.
That creates a bigger cushion to absorb those economic shocks.
So having a healthy reserve of foreign currency
Yeah.
could help to keep the rupee steady.
Exactly.
Any other levers they could pull?
Sure, they could implement policies that encourage exports
Okay.
and reduce reliance on imports.
Interesting.
Make Mauritian products more competitive globally,
Okay.
boost the economy, and support the rupee.
It's about finding ways to make Mauritius more self-sufficient,
Right.
less vulnerable to those outside pressures.
Exactly.
But what about those depleted special funds we talked about?
Yeah,
How can the government replenish those
that's a good question.
so they can fund those critical development projects?
Right. They could think about increasing revenue
Right.
through things like tax reform or exploring new income sources.
Mm.
Or they could prioritize spending,
Uh-huh.
making sure every rupee is used effectively.
Right.
Maybe even cut back on unnecessary expenditures.
It's about being strategic.
Exactly. Making tough choices.
Right. Allocating resources where they're needed most.
Yeah, it's like balancing a budget on a national scale.
Now, what about the CSG,
Oh, right.
the Social Security program, with that financing gap?
Yeah,
How do they fix that without creating more problems?
that's a tricky one.
Seems like it.
One option is to increase contributions to the CSG,
Okay.
maybe by raising rates or broadening who contributes.
Mm-hmm.
But that has to be done carefully,
Yeah.
considering the impact on people and businesses.
Right. Especially in the current economic climate.
Exactly. It's about finding a sustainable solution,
No.
one that doesn't burden the people it's supposed to help.
Absolutely. Are there any other avenues they could consider?
They could also look at streamlining the benefits provided by the CSG,
Okay.
adjusting things without compromising its core mission.
Right.
It's a tough conversation to have,
Yeah.
but it's necessary.
For the long-term health of the program.
Exactly. After all, social safety nets are crucial.
Especially in times of economic uncertainty.
For sure.
Now, we've talked a lot about the government's role,
Right.
but the private sector has a part to play too, right?
Absolutely.
What can businesses do to contribute to a more robust and transparent Mauritian economy?
Well, businesses need to make transparency a priority in their own operations.
Okay.
Be upfront about their financials.
Mm-hmm.
Adhere to ethical accounting practices.
Mm-hmm.
Build trust with their stakeholders.
So it's about leading by example.
Exactly.
If businesses show a commitment to ethical and transparent practices,
Right.
it could have a ripple effect.
For sure.
And beyond transparency,
Yeah.
businesses can invest in areas that create sustainable growth,
Mm-hmm.
like innovation skills, develop environmentally friendly practices.
All good things.
And they can partner with the government
Right.
on initiatives that support economic development.
Yeah, like infrastructure projects or job creation programs.
So it's about collaboration,
Yeah.
working together towards common goals.
Right. But even with all these potential solutions,
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that there are no quick fixes here.
I agree.
These are complex challenges.
They are. They'll require sustained effort from everyone.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly.
Rebuilding trust,
Yeah.
fostering investment, stabilizing the currency, addressing those fiscal challenges, all those things take time, commitment, and a willingness to adapt and learn.
So where do we go from here? What does the future hold for the Mauritian economy? Can they actually turn things around? So we've explored the challenges and some potential solutions.
Right.
But the big question is, what's next for the Mauritian economy?
Yeah, it feels like they're at a crossroads.
Right.
A lot of potential, but a lot of uncertainty, too.
It's like we're at the edge of a forest.
Yeah.
We can see a few paths, but we don't know where they lead.
Right.
Which path they choose will determine their economic future.
For sure.
So let's play out some scenarios.
Okay.
What happens if things just stay the same? What does that future look like?
Well, if the new government doesn't take action to address these challenges, we could see more economic stagnation. The rupee might continue to depreciate, investment could stay low, and those key sectors we talked about could continue to struggle. It wouldn't be a total collapse,
Right.
but it wouldn't be growth either.
So kind of a treading water scenario.
Yeah.
Not great, but not a disaster.
Right.
What would a more optimistic path look like?
Well, the optimistic scenario is the new government steps up
Okay.
and implements those reforms we talked about. Prioritize transparency, attract investment into productive sectors, stabilize the rupee, and tackle those fiscal challenges head on.
So they take some bold action, make some big moves.
Exactly.
What would be the outcome of that?
In that case, we could see a resurgence of growth.
Okay.
The rupee could stabilize, new industries could emerge, and Mauritius could become a strong economic force in the region again.
That's a much brighter picture.
Yeah, it would take time, of course,
Of course.
but the potential is there.
But even on that optimistic path, I imagine there would still be some bumps in the road.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like everything's fixed overnight.
Right. There will always be challenges, setbacks, things you can't predict.
Uh-huh.
The key is to be adaptable, learn from mistakes, and keep moving forward.
So for someone listening to this, trying to understand the Mauritian economy, what's the takeaway?
I think the most important thing is to be critical.
Okay.
Don't just take the economic data at face value.
Right.
Look for context, consider different perspectives, really dig in to understand what's going on.
And what about transparency?
Transparency is so important for a healthy economy. Demand it from your government, from businesses, from everyone.
Okay.
It builds trust, creates accountability, and makes things fair.
And ultimately, it's about believing that change is possible.
Right.
That even with these challenges, there's still hope.
Absolutely. Challenges can be overcome with action and a commitment to finding solutions.
Yeah.
It's about working together, staying informed, and seeing the bigger picture.
Well said. I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the Mauritian economy. We've covered a lot, but as always, there's more to learn.
Right. We encourage you to keep researching, asking questions, and stay engaged with these issues. Knowledge is power.
Right.
The more you know, the better you'll be able to navigate our global economy.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you found this insightful.
Yeah.
Until next time, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep asking questions.